Hey, it's Thursday night, and welcome to the Valken Debrief episode number 47. And we are broadcasting live from the beautiful Colorado Ranch. This is the show where we share upcoming events, chat with our special guests, and we always try to give away free stuff. So thank you, the viewers, for joining the biggest budget live show in Airsoft. It's all for you. And I am the Kaiju, the Supreme Commander of the Valken Alliance. And to my left, your right is, hey Charlie, where's Darth Valken? He's not here. Holly, do you know where he's at?
I'm here.
Holly, hold on. Holly's getting him in on the satellite. Holly, can you bring him up? Oh, hey, there he is.
About time.
I know, right? Oh my goodness, man, where you at? Can you say?
I'm close to Copperhead. We'll put it that way.
Oh, Copperhead. Did you ever get to play Copperhead? I can't remember.
No, I've never been to Copperhead. I'm not a fan of tarantula hawks, rattlesnakes, and tarantulas.
Yes, that is. There's definitely a lot of snakes out there. I can definitely vouch for that. So, you all good? Settled in? Ready to kick this off, Mr. Josh?
Oh yeah, ready to go.
All right. Well, tonight's production crew is Holly in control room B, up there up top, and intern Charlie, I believe he's floating on one strike, but I have high hopes. He's going to do good. And give it up. All you folks out there, give it up for the best artificial intelligence mod in the industry. I mean, the best the money can buy. Our AI mod is by far top notch. And we already got 29, 30 viewers in here. We got Lacey, we got Al, Carlos, Twig from Center Mass, Bruce from Mutiny. Man, they're all joining us. Hit that share button, guys. Tag a friend. Let's see, who should I tag? I'm going to tag Woodcock. Yes, I'm going to tag Woodcock because sharing the show is so easy, and Woodcock can do it. So we have been getting a lot of suggestions from you guys and gals out there watching us in the interwebs for suggestions for the show, and we hear them all. And two big things that we're kicking off tonight, we're starting off at an earlier time, so 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. So hopefully we can get a lot more folks in here. We're already up to 35 viewers. Let's get that up higher, hit that share button. And the other thing is, you guys have asked for a topic-centric show. So we're not only going to have a topic-centric show, we're going to have 3 in a row for all you all out there because, you guys asked for it. And tonight's special guest coming all the way in from the southern region down in the big state of Texas. Please welcome our special guest for tonight, Kyle Noe, also known to his friends as the Puppet Master. Kyle, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Awesome. Let's see if the satellite catches up because I'm seeing like 2 pictures of Josh. Holly, can you mess with that a little bit? I don't know why I can't see Kyle. Keep talking, Kyle. Keep talking.
All right. I mean, it's not really imperative.
There he is. It just switched over. So I guess we have it's a Vox little picture-in-picture we got going on. So thank you for taking your time out of your schedule and joining us, peons out here. But we appreciate it.
All of us puppets.
Yes, puppets. You are the Puppet Master. Tell us what's behind the Puppet Master.
It started when I started helping AMS with game design, basically to get the commanders to do what I needed them to do without telling them the actual, game plan.
Oh.
So you had to release just enough information to get the movements of troops to do what they need to do without giving away the whole shebang.
Gotcha. Hey, we got Alan. Alan from Chris. He's in there. What's up, Alan? You overseas in Asia? Miss you, buddy. And we got Tony Patton. Says, what's up, Noe? And yeah, cool. And we have a tradition here, Kyle. Because we love awarding people, just participation awards. Just because, So we've got our Overachiever of the Hour award, which goes to our first poster of the night. Congrats. Tim Green from the Midwest region. You were first. Maybe a slow clap. Good job. So he is our overachiever.
Careful, he's got a man crush on you.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Austin Collins, deployed downrange. Man, he has less than a week out before he comes home. Hey, we got Ryan Wilson from Airsoft C3 joining us in the chat. Hey, guys and gals, hit that share button. We're just about up to 40 folks. And something else I wanted to share with you all, just in case you've missed the last few episodes, is there's a new way you can support us on the show. As you can see on here, you can go to valkenalliance.com, hit our shop page, and you can buy a shirt. You can buy one of those Join the Alliance t-shirts that says Arrive, Raise Hell, Leave, or as seen on Valken Debrief. All the proceeds from those shirts go right here back into the show. And tonight's show, just like every other night, is brought to you by the Valken Alliance. All you got to do is click the Join tab, sign up, as you can see there, right there on your screen. Just fill out the form, select what region you're in, hit submit, and you can also do it as your team. There's also a team sign up under the sponsorship tab. And then after you do that, be sure to head on over to our Facebook regional groups. We have those Facebook groups for every region. They are public groups. Just hit Valken Alliance. Look under the groups on Facebook and join your local region. Tonight we are featuring the Northeast region, Region 6, which is pretty much all of the New England states. Hey, Rob Pierce is watching. Valken Rob, what's up? Nick Forbes is in the house. Garen Zaxby from Double Tap. Kyle, you know that guy.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. That is so awesome. So, real quick, hit that share button, and we're going to be coming right back. If you haven't joined yet, hey, head on over, hit the share. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back so we can get on with the show. So, Holly, you got that all warmed up? Here we go.
Hello, this is Chris from Enola Gay, and you're watching the Valken Debrief.
Booyah! Welcome back to episode number 47. Hit that like button, hit the share button, invite your friends in here. Op Line Clause 17 was a lot of fun out there at George Air Force Base. And going with a little bit different format for tonight. Unfortunately, even though there's a lot of people with birthdays out there, we're not going to have time to do our birthday shout out this evening. However, instead of birthdays, we felt very compelled to mention one of our near and dear friends from one of our sponsored teams, Nemesis, Milsim, and the passing of Zach Tumbles Bullenow from Nemesis Milsim. You can see him up there on the screen for those of you in the Midwest that got a chance to play with him. Great kid. Unfortunately, he passed away a few nights ago from a motorcycle hit and run accident. He was training up to join the Air Force to be a PJ, and he was enlisting this September and moving on. So big loss to Nemesis Milsim and to his family in the Midwest. They are holding visitation and funeral services tomorrow at Spring Creek Church. You can see it right up there on the screen in Pewaukee, Wisconsin. That's tomorrow. The viewing is from 5 to 7 p.m. and then the funeral is at 7 p.m. And our hearts go out to them. And we reached out to the family and asked, hey, is there any way we can help? And they said, if you feel compelled to donate, you can make donations in honor of Zach to the Pararescue Foundation, which our model throw up the link to that. And we just hope and send all our good thoughts and prayers out to him and his family. It's a big loss whenever we lose someone in the community. Moving on, it's that time for events. And Josh, I know you normally do events, but I'm gonna help you out tonight. How's that sound?
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good, right? So we are going to put the test to our AI mod tonight. This is going to be the event update, 60 seconds or less. So those of you watching, put me on a timer. Let's see if I can rip through these. All right, here we go. In the South region, July 14th in Spring, Texas, is Airsoft Palooza. It's an evic.com outpost and high ground event. Then moving on into the Midwest, July 14th through 15th in Tinley Park, Illinois, Scorched Earth is being hosted by Airsoft Republic. Be sure to go check that out. And also in the Midwest region, on July 28th in Oklahoma City, it's going to be the grand opening of 10-8 Tactical's field and arena. So be sure to go check that out as well. And in the southern region, July 28th in Hudson, Florida, we've got Gator Paintball and Airsoft Extreme hosting in Hudson, Florida, Code Nightwolf. It is a night game, so bring out your tracers and all your glow-in-the-dark BBs. In the Midwest region, August 3rd in Lockport, Illinois, codename Thunder is hosting codename Thunder 15 at Legacy Adventure Park there in Lockport. And in the Pacific region, August 3rd through the 4th, Corona, California, Operation Lion Claw's Military Simulation Series is hosting Coronenberg Rising at the German Ren Fair Village there in Southern California. Returning back to the Midwest, August 11th in Kansas City, Kansas, Center Mass Airsoft, Twig and those folks out there are hosting Operation Extraction. So be sure to head on out to that event if you're in the area. And back here, Charlie, seriously, Charlie, this is strike 2. He put the Midwest region, and we know it's in the Rockies. It's even lit up on a Charlie, strike 2, buddy. Man, screwing up my game. In the Rockies region, August 18th through the 19th, in Sedalia, Colorado, Hard Strike Milsim is hosting Bloodlines Machina which is being held at the Titan Airsoft field in Sedalia. They have locked in a location for that. And, oh my God, Charlie, strike three. You did it again. Back-to-back events in Colorado, and you put the Midwest Rockies. Charlie, you're fired. Josh, what do we say? Did we lose Josh? Well, bye, Felicia.
All right, pack your stuff. I don't know. Get out.
Bye, Felicia. Charlie. Oh my goodness. August.
I wish I could be there to see the look on his face.
He's pouting. No, turn around. Just walk out. Walk out. There you go. See you later. All right. Rockies region, August 24th through the 25th in Brighton, Colorado. Josh, you and I are going to head up to American Paintball Coliseum for Battle of Chernobyl 5. They're going to have a night game Friday night and then all-day play on Saturday. So we're going to go get our game on. And in the Midwest, September 1st through the 2nd Labor Day weekend in Wyandotte, Oklahoma, D-Day Adventure Park is hosting War Game Oklahoma. Normally they do D-Day Oklahoma, their big paintball event, but now they are hosting their own Airsoft event, big weekend. Moving on to the Northeast region, September 22nd through the 23rd at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Operation Lion Claws is hosting Operation X5, Enemy at the Gates, and we were just there back in June, so we're going back for round 2. And rounding out the events tonight in the southern region, October 5th through the 7th in Blakely, Georgia, Centurion Milsim, Bubba Moore, and those folks are hosting Oscar Mike 2018. And oh my goodness, that does it for events. I wonder how the mod did. AI's, if AI could swear at me right now, I bet you he's giving me the proverbial metallic finger. What do you think, Josh?
I don't know. I think the CPU's overheating.
The CPU's overheating.
Yeah, pour some bourbon on it.
All right. So we are going to cut to quick commercial and head right into our question and answer period with Kyle Noe and Josh and myself. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Make sure you guys hit that share button. Get your friends and your folks in here.
What's up, guys? This is Les Trooper, and you can catch the Valken Debrief at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. Check it out.
My name is Bill Greenman Ford, the General Manager for Command Decisions Wargame Center. We proudly offer Valken products for the best experience. We would love to have you guys come visit us, and you can find out more about us at cdwargames.com and fulldegap.com.
And welcome back to episode number 47. And tonight's show, I'm excited. It's about Milsim game design. And that seems like a mouthful, Kyle. Milsim game design. Is it like the military, we're just giving the title to something that's really not, really doesn't exist? Or
I mean, I guess in the military it'd be MGD, which is a whole different acronym. But yeah, I mean, we'd probably call it something weird.
Man, look at you wearing a UFS shirt there.
Oh yeah, it's my own personal design. It's you feckless.
You. Oh my God. That is.
And I figure
awesome.
right now there's a bunch of guys who wear green trying to Google where do I buy that, and there's a bunch of guys wearing tan Googling what feckless means.
And then getting all butthurt. I wait for the keyboard commandos to come rolling in.
Give it 2 minutes and they'll figure out, whether or not that's good or bad.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
They probably think it's like, it must be the condition where you have the absence of freckles, probably.
That's right, yes.
The absence of freckles. Oh my gosh. If you're just joining us, it's episode 47. If you got a question for Kyle, Josh, myself, in regards to game design. We're going to be talking about that tonight, which is also going to build on the next couple of weeks. Next week, we're going to be talking about faction commanders and how important they are to an event. The whole show next week's dedicated to faction commanders. And the week after that, we're actually going to be talking about, what was it? Milsim event economics and logistics, talking about the infrastructure and things of that. So, but tonight is just mostly about design. And Kyle, I think, we should start with the baseline, first. Like, what is Milsim? And, what should it look like? And Josh, feel free to chime in as well.
I forget who it was that told me the quote, because it came to me by way of like through other people, but the best description is Milsim is where you are. Anything more hardcore is LARPing, and anything less hardcore is speed soft. So it just depends on what you want.
Oh, I would agree with that.
So, raise the hands out there. Anybody who thinks it's a fashion show? Anybody?
It's always a
Anybody?
fashion show. I'm sorry, I should have prefaced that. It's always a fashion show. It's just how long you want to wear that particular outfit.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Where do we see Milsim? I mean, amongst the three of us, we're probably combined, 40 years plus in the recreational shooting hobby, most likely, give or take.
Possibly, yeah. Somewhere around that.
Where do we see Milsim, moving in the future?
Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say sensitivity training, but
Yeah. Basically a bunch of #MeToo. I mean, I don't really know. It depends on, from the game perspective. I think that there's a bunch of people out there doing a bunch of different things. So I don't know if anything is going to be new under the sun, because everything's kind of been tried. It's just who's going to pull it off the best with the better product.
with the least amount of complaining.
Oh, no, the complaint, yeah, but I mean, that's like 50% versus 49% complaining. I mean, you can't fix the complaining.
Well, the problem is that people think that listening to the complaining fixes it.
Oh, right,
Just-
yeah.
Just a personal comment. It's like someone complains, oh, better fix that. Oh, better fix that.
I'm more of there's the two schools of thought. There's the one that says the greasy wheel, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I am more on the Japanese side, which is the nail that sticks up gets hammered.
Oh, yeah.
So that's more my attitude towards the complaining. But it just depends on, that's just me personally. I can't say it's good for it's good for the entire industry.
Twig Humphrey in the chat says Airsoft is 75% looks, and Jamal Harris retorts 92%.
Yeah, I would agree with that, except I would say it's probably 92% looks depending on the weather, and then 95% hydration.
Or the lack of hydration.
Yeah, tomato.
Oh, yes. Freddie, you're talking about command structure, Freddie. Good question. You got to save that till next week. And Airborne Tim, I see your question, and we'll get to that one in a minute. Lacey says paintballs don't hurt as much as a bigger BB would. Man, I guess Lacey's never seen an 8mm BB. Do you think Milsim has changed over the years, or 2, 3, 4, 5 years than what it used to be, or is it pretty much the same?
No, for the most part, it's gotten a lot. The technology in Airsoft. Back when I started playing, if you had a God gun, it would shoot like maybe 6 to 8 rounds a second on full auto, and your max range would be about 45 yards, which now makes it basically a really bad quality pistol. But so the technology has really boosted what you can do as far as troop movements go and things of that nature. Plus, depending on who's there at that particular time, but the use of communications has really, if you get 15 guys in the same, less than basically 5% of your team has good comms, you're going to, just run ramshot over everybody else. So those technologies have really, and when I'm contrasting this to like 15 years ago. So it's been a long time since my first John Liu events, if you will, which was basically muster here in March, and that's what has really driven, I think, a lot of the not in a bad way, but it's made game developers either get larger AOs because of that, or go to more complex game styles because the technology's gotten so much better.
What about you, Josh? You think it's changed?
I almost think that's kind of the opposite. I think less people have gotten on comms because when I started, everybody had a damn Motorola and thought that they were, your radio comms officer. What do they call that?
RTO?
Right now. RTO, that one. Everyone thought they were an RTO. It was like every time I was, and people, everyone had a radio. They just shut it off because there was like 20 people going, "Ooh, I see a guy over there."
No. I didn't mean that it was the availability ratings. It was good comms. So when you're trying to use
there you go, good comms.
Yeah. So like I'm contrasting Motorola's to Baofangs, which aren't necessarily good comms, they're just better. And then onto, good comms, which I consider good comms would be in the, like legit Motorola Sabres and ICOM kind of realm, where you can push through things a lot better and pick frequencies that work for that particular AO.
Or, everyone's got a Baofeng, but how many of them are operating legitimately with a license?
None.
Broadcasting on 5 watts with no license.
Hey, that's enough out of you, Josh. We don't need to hear. We don't need that kind of input. And
Sam Nemo down in the southern region, he says, "Comms ruin Milsim." Lacey says, "Players affect the experience more than experience."
No. David Lee on comms ruins Milsim.
Wow.
I'm gonna drink to that.
All right, here we go. We heard him. I got mine. You got yours, Josh. Oh my goodness. So let's jump into this game design thing. Kyle, what makes a producer qualified to host a game? What should be on? What do you think their resume should look like?
A producer?
Yeah, game producer, host. Whoever's in charge of the company that's putting on this event.
I don't know.
Come on, spit it out.
There's not on a resume, there's things you can't put on a resume. The only thing you have to be is smarter than the average idiot.
So IQ.
Let's say 110, 115.
or if there's stuff that you can't put on a resume, but people do. I'm a Delta Ninja Ranger Army SEAL, and I teach airsoft classes for $35.
That guy clearly is not meeting the threshold of 115.
Well, when it's like, I'm a certified airsoft RSO.
Yeah, there's not. The issue is it's kind of like being a commander. Like, there's the only thing really that's similar is, that you can't teach within 35 seconds of squad cohesion and things of that nature is, don't be an idiot. But we look like we're the real military, but in all reality, when was the last time somebody got a 600-yard shot with their airsoft gun? Never. So the tactics don't necessarily translate, except for maybe CQB, but even that's kind of sketchy at times. So I would say that there wouldn't really be anything on a resume one way or the other that would dictate that either way. The only thing you really need is the personality to get buy-in on your game design, i.e., write a good storyline and stick to a storyline and make everybody kind of understand what's going on. That's way more important than anything you can really put on a resume per se. In general.
Right, and we're just saying that, we specifically brought that up because people are always having, penis measuring contest, right? Of, oh, this is my DD214, this is my resume. I mean, you can pretty much come from anywhere as long as you're a smart dude or dudette. I mean, Sam Nemo says most prior military don't have the training and experience to be better airsoft players. It actually depends on, what they did, because, some people just throw out there, oh, I'm prior military, and people just assume like, oh, he must know his stuff, which isn't always 100%, accurate, because a pack clerk from the E4 Mafia, probably not as good as like an infantry or combat arms dude when it comes to understanding, scenarios and field exercises.
Well, and then my argument would be, and how much of the real world experience actually translates.
Yeah.
If you find a game producer that wants to pay people, $40,000 a year to play airsoft, I'll bet you'd have a lot better unit cohesion. But it's a different mentality. It's more, you have to get personal buy-in. There's not, it's a nice hybrid solution that would be very difficult. So I mean, when I mean, that could be like different commander and tactics version, but like real world tactics don't really, you got to go back 2,000 years before you find military tactics that work in airsoft.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Kev Grew, you know this guy, Kevin Tran? Fake news. He just hopped in. Oh, we know where you live, Kev Grew.
Yeah, I'm in striking distance.
Oh, Kevin, Darth Valken is nearby. He's very close. He can reach out and touch it. I can just text him where you work. He'll come by and visit you tomorrow. How important, when it comes to designing a game, how important is the location and the ability to read the AO?
Well, it's very important because you have to build the game based upon the attrition that it causes. So if you have
if you build it one way and then flip the FOBs 5 minutes to start X, that doesn't work.
No, not so much. I think that falls under ill-advised. I'll go ahead and write that into the ill-advised column. I mean, you have to be able to walk in, at least have some idea of how that game's going to play from the commander and the faction sides, if you will, and have some knowledge of how that's going to work. And that's kind of, I guess that's a good back segue into the other question of what should be the qualifications. Realistically, you should know how to command an airsoft game before you try to build one. Because if you don't know, at least theoretically, the capabilities of what a commander can do and all the obstacles involved with it, you're going to look at the field completely different. So you're going to have to see the topography and then also, cover and things of that nature, and how fields are going to play based upon how you make people enter the AO.
Hey, we got some more folks joining us here. Oh, Top is in here. Sean Galloway from local field Kiowa is in here. We also got Ron Mexico. You remember Jason Lean?
Heck yeah!
He's saying chow time is the most important part of the game. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Extremely true. It's extremely true.
Michael Bright from Dire Wolves up north in Canada says leading in airsoft is more like being a manager. You have to get by leveraging personal relationships and knowing how to motivate people. I would agree with that.
I would call that leadership, not management, but okay.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Kev Grew just asked about L-shaped ambushes. I love you, Kevin.
I'm gonna drink to that.
I heard that story. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you have to assume, like you have to explain to airsofters, what an L is before you actually teach it. You gotta make sure they know the whole alphabet.
That's a good point. Most don't get past Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and as soon as you get past there, they're out.
Nope. Yeah, it's like
we touched on it a little bit. Producer, should they be able to build a good story?
I guess what's the question?
Producer.
Should a producer be able to write a good story? Yeah.
Yes.
Because the game is a story. At the end of the day, it's live action role playing a story. So of course you have to be able to write a story. I mean, and a lot of people put a lot of time and effort in that. I mean, I know JP puts tons of hours into getting the cost UFS and that world up and running, and there's a lot of backstory there you can read through on the forums and whatever else. That's hours of work, and it's good. Obviously, Milsim West does similar things. Every op has a story background that they go off of. I think that's very important.
So you've gone over the attrition properties of the AO and
right.
Sticking to a good story, but I think people most often overlook the rigidity and the language of the rule set. Because I just see so many times where the rule set is flexible, depending on who's asking the question, and
how many YouTube followers you have is what you're trying to say.
I didn't say it.
I'm just saying.
No, I'm kidding. I would say that, and I've seen it. When someone brings assets or something, it's like all someone has to do is threaten to bring an asset off the field, and it's like, whoa, let's talk about this. It's like, these are the damn rules. Like, you read it. This is how it's supposed to be, or vice versa, where they read it and they get there and it changes. Like the rigidity and the set in stone, almost 10 commandment nature of it is non-existent. And
right. I mean, I'm with you on the rule set 100%. And enforcing the rule set's important, but I think it's also kind of the world we live in where we kind of, because I've had the argument with people basically before, which is like I said, hey, you can't do that, and they said, well, it's not in the rule set that says that we can't do this, and I said, is it in the rule set that says that you can? And it's just a different mindset, and everybody wants to build everything into a rule set. And I think that the number one rule of Airsoft should be don't be an asshole, because you can list 100 rules and somebody can break one of those and not be an asshole. And you can list 100 rules and somebody can not break one of them and still be an asshole. It just depends on what you personally are doing and what your intent is at the time. And so it's almost holding people to the spirit of the game instead of the letter of the law. But of course, the problem is, as we mentioned at the, almost at the very beginning of the, of the show, was that it becomes problematic with the whininess, because somebody's going to get booted for something that, well, you didn't say I couldn't do that. I'm like, I don't really care. You're being an asshole, so go. If your intent is to specifically make somebody else's experience, or if your intent is to be a detriment to somebody else's experience, whether on your team or the other team, you should just get kicked out. And you can't write all those things in a rule set. You just can't do it. And I'm not, and look, this is obviously utopian from my perspective, because I've never had to be the guy who actually starts booting people off the field in any massive numbers. But that should be the end goal.
And you and I, we talked a little bit about, rules before, and we were on the same page as far as, a master rule set for an event producer should be safety oriented. Safety rules and regulations, FPS, iPro, the simple A to Z, right? And then you were actually mentioning in our talk before the show started that rule sets should be faction specific per event, right?
Yeah, that's a different way to get there. Yeah. So, but that conversation was basically how to build the event. And a lot of that is to give people different experiences, I kind of go back to the original Halo when people were asking Bungie, what made Halo so good, and they were like, well, every time you turn the corner, there's something new. Every time there's this, there's always something, whatever. And then in a 30-second fight, that 30-second fight is always great. And in Airsoft, you can try to be prop centric, but getting even 80% of your players or 50% of your players to interact with a prop is almost impossible. So the rule set, you can actually dictate a lot more about the feel and excitement of the game based upon a lot of the restrictions you put on the rule set, meaning like loadout restrictions and things of that nature, than you can with props. And so that's kind of what I meant by the rule set. Specific faction rule set is more about specific faction loadout, because it allows you to control a lot of things, i.e. the reindeer games that that you were the commander of over in Stinger Field in Texas. UFS had your standard the standard AMS loadout, and then the CDF guys. I built that game where the CDF guys they were extremely low on ammo. Everybody was a medic, but you only got one medic bandage. And what it basically created was you had to play to your rule set, and by having faction specific and divergent rule sets, you can force the way that people play the game. And by doing that, you can build an asymmetrical game for asymmetrical AOs, because there's no one AO that's a perfect circle with everybody's got even this and even that. That's speedball. But when you get to real AOs, it doesn't happen. So if you can build the rule sets specifically for the AO and for how you want a certain faction to operate, now that's something that affects every player on the field, not only from their own play style, but from the play style they see from the other team. And that really opens up a lot of the experience and makes it a really fun game.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember that game. It was great, and I think by also establishing separate rule sets for factions, like you said, and I don't remember them exactly, but just for our viewers, just to give you an idea, imagine one faction was allowed full auto but lower ammunition capacity, and everybody could medic once, while the other faction was semi-only, one medic per squad, and they could be medic twice, right? And I think by having separate rule sets, it just reminded me of, because I'm operating off a rule set with somebody else, I can't sit there and yell across the AO, hey, you're not following the rules. Well, that's another faction under a different rule set, because, and the chat's blowing up about, people don't follow the rules, refs don't even know the rules, and, you get a lot of people, yelling out, hey, call your hit, hey, you're in the way, get out of the way, you're violating the rules. There's all these challenges on the field where just people are calling each other out, and I mean, how do you alleviate that as a producer?
Well, I mean, I have theoretics. I can't say that it always works because it hasn't necessarily always been tried. But what you're referring to is typically if you have one rule set for both teams. That's what I have in my own kind of conversations coined football airsoft. So if everybody's playing by the same rules and you're playing on a field, now your opponent is actually the other team. And in a game of integrity where you can't have, one ref for every two players like you do in like X-ball, paintball, or I think it's actually higher, it might be one ref per player, I don't know. But because you can't do that in Airsoft, it creates a lot of problems. Like you said, well, they don't know the rule set, they don't do this, because now you're mad because, I'm on this side following these rules and they're not following the same rules. Well, if you change that and I give one team, way more ammo, but I don't let them medic anybody at all, and this is just a hypothetical, but I give the other team, 4 medic bandages, but they only get, 3 mags, this game's going to play completely different, even by the tactics that that I'm forcing each side to play with. One team has to play an extremely, defensive game, and the other team can play an extremely fast offensive game. And that's all done with the rule set. Like I can dictate that. If you think you're going to play a defensive game with 3 mags, you're going to die quick. You've got to hit and move, and you've got to keep on the run and just burn through everybody, because you can't defend against a larger force or even equal force. So what I tend to look at is the best way to think of Airsoft is to play a game of golf, which is both teams are playing on the same course, but because they're playing with different rules, they're actually playing different games. And that alleviates a lot of the arguments, because there's no such thing as a winner. Because one guy's playing, one game over here, and the other guy's playing another game over here. And Alex Mulder says it best. He says, basically separate win criteria. So instead of building basically one game that both teams are playing on a football field, you build 2 games, or maybe even a backup, couple hybrid game in the middle, because things never go right. And therefore each team is really playing a completely separate game, and there can't be a winner or a loser. And that's where a lot of the bickering back and forth starts, which is, hey, this isn't fair because I have to do this, but they don't. Who cares? If you're not playing the same game, nobody can really be frustrated about losing or winning, because that's impossible. And then theoretically that will transition over to, less hit calling problems and things of that nature.
Yeah, Top says here in the chat, players have to play their role, get into it, focus on it, get lost in it. So busy with it that they don't have time for the other nonsense. I mean, that's pretty good words. If you're focusing on the immersion and the experience and doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're not.
That needs to go on a poster.
Let's put on a T-shirt.
I don't know if it fit, but I'll try next week.
Okay.
I think it worked better as a poster. Airsoft motivational quotes.
Yeah.
Now,
it's like one category above motivational posters with cats.
And you touched on this, and let's elaborate on this a little bit more so our viewers can chime in. You mentioned asymmetrical games with separate win conditions. What do you mean by that?
So basically, have it where one team, like let's say a military style faction, is playing and they have more military style objectives. So their objective is to take ground and hold it, or go, attack certain things, or capture, warlords, or whatever that happens to be. And then the other side, on the other hand, we can say I'm coming from the AMS world, like a CDF style faction that's more civilian defense force. They might be going after food stores. They might be trying to attack, quote unquote, supply lines of the enemy troops, things of that nature. So it's not basically there has to be a hybrid. There has to be places that are strategic that both teams are going to want to control from a basically just from a play the field kind of standpoint, like strongholds. But when it comes to the actual game that you're playing, you don't want to have it where I'm going to throw a sledge widget out in the middle of the field and then just tell both teams to go after it at the same time.
Because that creates that, airsoft football
that's right. That's
situation.
Airsoft football. Yeah.
Which lends to stalemates, people being
Correct.
unhappy because they're going after the same exact thing.
Right. And so now that's not to say that that's not a fun game to play, right? I mean, basically it's...
it has its place.
It has its place. It's just that can't be the whole game, right? It's nice to have a good combination of both. But in those types of games where you have basically 2 different, storylines that aren't really the same storyline, you can do fun things like that. And so one team can be winning their game at the same time the other team's winning their game. The only requirement that normally I try to push is I like to use the term equal opportunity ass pain. So instead of giving teams advantages, I just keep adding more and more disadvantages until it's a pain in the ass. And there's several reasons for that. Don't get me wrong. I am kind of blunt, and some people don't take that the right way. But the main point of that is every good airsoft event I've been to, it was because of a story that came out of it. And normally that story is either, man, me and my 3 buddies held this house for the better part of like an hour against a platoon. And then, oh my gosh, when they finally got through that door, we got destroyed. And here's a guy, and that's a fun story, right? That's like literally getting rolled over by 30 dudes who just mow you down. But hey, if you held them off for 20 minutes, that's God mode right there. And that's a good story. And a lot of other stories that I've had, like, back to my, playing days of John Liu, where it's like, hey, I walked, 5 clicks through the worst possible terrain to get this dude somewhere he needed to be because the road was basically just an ambush fest. Not L-shaped, mind you. That was more of a, just a straight line ambush. So we basically bypassed. It was miserable, but it made a great story. Like, it was terrible while we were doing it, but afterwards it was great. And as a game designer, it should basically be, instead of giving people fun things to do, you should give them complete and utter miserable things to do. Because that allows the player to have that, to basically adapt and overcome. And that's where all those good airsoft stories come from.
Yeah, I always tell folks, when I go to a game, it's, you should leave from this event with at least 2 epic moments. And like your example was, hey, you might have gotten your butt handed to you, but you held off a platoon for 20 minutes and you died gloriously. Again, it might not have to have dealt with a scenario, a cool guy mission, a frago, whatever, but you had your epic moment. And
that's right. Valhalla, man.
Valhalla.
Go for Valhalla.
I think more people are concerned with notching it, how many kill counts they get on their belt, rather than playing from epic moment to epic moment.
Right. I mean, I remember, like, as a commander, be back in the FOB, and when I needed something done that was just, it was a long shot at best. I was never like, hey, I was never like, hey, we need this done, go do it, make sure it gets done. I was like, hey, show of hands, who wants to go get shot? I want a show of hands. Who out here wants to just do some crazy, ridiculously stupid suicide mission where you're probably going to get blasted with the saw from 3 different directions? And I have yet to have it where I didn't have at least 10 people out of, 15 that were like, yeah, I'll go die.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's
I
fun.
call it the Kobayashi Maru scenario. I always
That's right.
have at least a couple of them in my back pocket. It's, even though, I've played as a player, I've played as, a commander. One of the things that I always try to do is I have a couple missions in my back pocket. Yeah, they fall in within the story, but they're not like part of the the scenario, right? The game, but it falls in line with the spirit of the game. But they're Kobayashi Marus. It's just, I've got a group of folks that want to go do something, and they just been kind of sitting on their hands and they're a little disgruntled, like, hey, go do this. And I know it's going to be a complete utter fail, but they go into it and they always come back, oh my gosh, that was so awesome, and they're telling me about how they just got raped, but they loved it.
Yeah. I remember first Op 34, Ryan Dean came up to me and Alex, and he was like, hey, whoever came up with this idea of filling, basically out like 8-gallon, tanks full of water and making us haul them all over the AO, that guy's an asshole. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, man. He goes, it's great. I mean, that was literally and it's like, yeah, because it sucks. Yeah. But when you're done, it has its purpose. It depletes your forces on the front line. It allows for the other team to attack. It allows a lot of back and forth, so there's no stalemates. That's good airsoft. Bad airsoft is you have your side of the street, I have my side of the street, and we shoot across the street each other from windows. That's terrible airsoft. I mean, I say that I've played that game, but that's terrible. It's no fun. It's like, hey, go take that building or die trying. I'm like, yeah, but then we'll lose this part of the line. Cool. We'll just go take it back because you're going to be re-armory fit by the time they come across the street, and we'll just go get that building back. At least it caused movement.
Sam Nemo says, and this goes right along with it, I tell my players this all the time, quote, you paid to get shot. Now move your ass.
That's right. That's 100% right.
Chris Nielsen from Brigade Milsim. What's up, Chris? Shout out to Brigade. Our last mechanized charge into Colville at Broken Home 7 was a total suicide mission, but one of the more epic things that he's been a part of.
Yeah, that was not going to go well for them, but they did it anyway, and it was indeed pretty awesome, not going to lie.
Bruce Allen from Mutiny Airsoft down in Louisiana. Getting a group of guys to follow you into that impossible situation always ends up with an epic ending, win or lose. And I think a lot of players are losing sight of that nowadays, because I know, Kyle, you call scenarios like puzzles, right? And your job as a producer is creating problems for players to solve, but what is your opinion on whether they solve them or not?
Don't care.
It doesn't matter. You don't care,
Doesn't matter. I don't care. Case in point, I say that like like the only thing I care about is if they get the mission. If they complete it, if they try to complete it, or if they failed, is of no consequence, because your job is to build the game, not build the win, right? So it was kind of a shame when we went to Black Site. I was talking with Alex, and there was this miserable like I don't know what it was. It was like a water main distribution like thing sunk into the ground, and you had to pull up this huge steel plate. And underneath there was a bunch of pipes. It wasn't sewage. It was just full of water. And I was talking to Alex, and I'm like, hey, we should drop an ammo can full of concrete in the bottom of that. And he goes, well, how deep is it? I'm like, I don't know. It looks like at least 3 to 4 feet. And he goes, well, how are they going to get it out? I'm like, that sounds like a them problem.
That is so you, too. Oh, my gosh.
I
that
do
is
not
so
care.
You.
I said, because here's what's going to happen. They're going to get there, and they're going to curse probably you, because nobody knows who I am, right? Well, they do now, maybe, like the 40 guys. But most people don't know. They all know Alex, because Alex is, the cool guy. I'm just the a-hole who comes up with the bad things. And I said, they're all going to curse you, not knowing that it's me. I said, but then, some dude's going to ranger up, and he's going to strip off his gear, and he's going to go flipping, pearl diving, and he's going to go rip that thing off the bottom and pull it up. And guess what? He's going to go home with this epic story. And all we had to do is not give him a good way to solve a problem. Just drop it down there and let them figure it out. I don't care if he has to go, like, maybe somebody miracles one of those little, like, grappling hook things out of their ass, because at least 10 guys are carrying one of those things for no good reason. Every other person's got bolt cutters. Although, ironically, that's because of what I did to Rick back at Copperhead, but that's beside the point. That's kind of the thing, is like, I don't really even have to, in a lot of scenarios, I come up with problems that I don't necessarily even have a good answer for. And that's the point. Like, I don't care how you solve it. That's the real world. I can't, and then they can come up with their own little thing. I'm not here to play Hansel and Gretel with a problem, because that's no fun.
I think one thing that hurts, I don't know how to say this lightly, inexperienced producers that don't reach that 110, 115 IQ range, is, I've seen it fail so many times, is their scenarios are connected and they build off each other to where they've got to complete this one in order to move on. And that is not the recipe for success, because, like you said, it doesn't matter if they solve it or don't solve it, but if you put something in front of them where they can't progress, if they don't pass this, you have failed as a host, as a producer, as a designer. Flat out, you have failed.
Right. Now, there is a caveat to that, which is, sometimes, because we've done that, but there's always a checks and balance, and that's where I got back to, like, you have to plan multiple basically ways to get the same thing, right? Which is, so when Alex and I are designing games, we can design games like that, but all you do by completing the mission is you get the next piece faster. Otherwise the next piece comes to you. Basically, all you're doing is just getting a step ahead. And so there is the checks and balances there where you can design a game where, hey, this is going to happen. But I mean, there's lots of times you show up and something just changes. A commander makes a move you don't expect, either good or bad, because that happens. And all of a sudden somebody can't get to some place, and that's where you've got, said thing. The side piece of that is always have multiples on the, give them a good, better, best. And then they can just keep working. It's all about time, right? So after such amount of time, you just give them another mission that's an easier mission, if you will, or more close to their main line. They complete that one, and it keeps them on the same track. I mean, those are all, I know it sounds kind of like Airsoft games really end up being a bunch of like pick your own adventure. And the secret to most of those books are the adventure normally ends up more or less the same way every time anyway. It's just how you got there. So you kind of build, multiple, it starts out as one branch, branches out, and then really comes back to the same place, which ends up basically being Sunday, just go shoot people. But that's beside the point.
Right. And, what you were saying reminds me of a saying that I know it's near and dear to your heart. 2 is 1, 1 is none. And you mentioning having, backup, because as a producer, you're going to have things go. You have a plan for one faction, you have a plan for the other faction, and then you need to have that backup for when everything else fails and nothing is going right. And it's more than just having 2 guns. It goes all the way up the chain to the design level. From your experience, how do you think about that third backup plan?
Well, so there's the first backup plan, and then the third, you got your secondary and then your tertiary. Oh crap, I used that. Anyway, all the TAN guys are going to go Google tertiary. But you've got your, so you have to build kind of like what you think is going to happen based upon, the parameters that you understand. And then we kind of have like the, what if that goes sideways? And that's kind of like you build the game to include that one. And then the tertiary one, though, that's like the crap has hit the fan. And that's basically like, what if one guy zigs while the other guy zags, and this thing just completely goes sideways? And then those are ones where, you just have to kind of like rewrite the book and just have an idea. Like you can't even place those pieces. You just have to kind of talk through that scenario. So when that time and frame hits, there's at least, a couple, 3 people who understand what's going to happen next. Like, hey, we're going to plan 10. And then they're like, okay, cool. And then we're just going to, it's going to completely shift the AO or do a bunch of other things, right? We had that kind of happen at Black Site that game ended up being an epic AO. And within an hour and a half, basically we were on the tertiary plan for about 10 different reasons, none of which were foreseen. And it's like, well, hey, I just started laughing. I was like, hey, you just cannot make this stuff up. Like this is theirs. And then the ironic part is that goes back to like kind of what I see as fun, which is that's kind of my, the game design. That's like, when Alex and I discussed those conversations, that's kind of like our adapt and overcome moment, right? We have to kind of rebuild the game using the scrap pieces of whatever was left and throw it together. It's kind of like MacGyver game style. Like, hey, what do we have left in the field? What's still available to use? Let's just kind of go from here. And then, that game ended up being, once again, the AO helped, but there were a lot of pieces that went into that happening. Not the least of which was when we showed up, we built the game around, basically the attrition algorithm, which is, hey, we put a fob here, we put a fob here, and then we kind of clash in the middle. We drive like a line down the middle, and then we do, topography and whatever else. These people are going up. These people have lanes of fire. And, Alex is, a good commander in his own right back in the day, although he hasn't done it in a while, and me too. And we're looking at it, and then we show up, and at the last minute, they took basically 1.5 buildings out of play that were right on the edge of the AO. And we didn't know about it. And so we just had to kind of like go from there. It's like, what are you going to do? Like the place is going to play, you don't have enough time to figure out how it's going to play. We just had to run it. And so that was kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool. To kind of, for those of us just joining us, we've had some other people joining us, including your partner in crime, Mr. Greg Anderson, who's going to be joining you next week's show when we talk about Commanders. So Greg's in here. Samurai Matt from Nemesis, he's watching too. So we've talked about equal opportunity, ass pain, creating problems to solve, and it doesn't matter if they solve it or not. And so for our viewers out there, we're going to talk about props and role players, or LARPers, however you want to talk about it. So if you got questions regarding props or role players, we're about to get into that. So, just put them down in the chat, and we'll ask away. So, because I was actually talking to Yuck earlier today, and we were talking about when you go to pay for a game, you have no clue about the design. You have no clue what the props are, what the role players are, what the scenario is. You're solely paying for a game, and all you really know is who the producer is and where it's at. So you're kind of going into it blind. Would you agree? Other than those two pieces of information?
For the most part, that's 100%.
And so not knowing what's coming in, are props or role players, do they help, not help? What? Where do you fall on the fence as far as incorporating those things into the game design?
I think a prop can be really cool. It just depends on what the prop is, but it just depends. It's a cost benefit analysis. Basically, how much does this prop cost in either actual money to build or buy, or basically get on the field, and in time as well, versus how many players are actually going to interact with that prop. I mean, for instance, if you say, hey, I'm going to build this really cool bomb prop, for instance, which, been there, done that. Everybody's built a bomb prop. I've got one sitting behind me. That was more of a real world bomb prop than Airsoft bomb prop, but that's besides. But in those kinds of scenarios, it's like, okay, well, maybe two people will see it and it's really cool. And that works out really good in like a really tight CQB game that it's like, 40, 50 players, bomb props are great. But when you get to like 300 versus 300, the percentage of players that interact with that bomb is like less than 1%. That's a bad use of resources. But if you take a SAM site, for instance, where a SAM site can be like, hey, you got to go find these crates. You got to haul the crates to, from point A to point B. You have to then do this thing and set it up over here. And then you have to do another thing. And then the other team has to come in and attack you while you're doing all this stuff and then blow it up after the fact. Now that one prop has touched, maybe 50, 70 guys, depending on the size of the game. That's a good use of a prop. So you just have to kind of weigh, like I said, there's not necessarily any one right answer, but you have to kind of weigh the cost benefit. The point of a prop is to get as many people interacting with it as possible in one way, shape, or form or another.
Could you say role players or LARPers are props?
The good ones probably are. The bad ones are just targets.
Joseph Lawrence says, LARP makes the game awesome. It's all relative, Joe. It's all relative.
It is all relative.
It is all relative.
But no, role players definitely have their place. It just depends on if they're actually role players or if they're just airsofters who want to be special snowflakes.
Yeah, gun bunnies. I've always believed mercs, no role players with guns, no gun bunnies, actual people that can immerse themselves and provide, because a role player or a LARPer, whatever you want to call it, you're there to make sure as many people as possible enjoy their interaction with you.
I don't know if I agree with the gun thing 100%. When we did La Losa at Copperhead, I thought that was a good hybrid where we were kind of role playing. But when
would you consider yourself a third faction on on from that?
Oh, I guess, yeah, if you want to split that as a third fact, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. I guess we just, yeah, we could just call it a third faction that fixes all the issues.
Yeah. Cade the Legend Yates is watching.
Yeah.
John Myrick from All Star Airsoft up in Connecticut. Shout out to those guys. Red Wolf Tim, who is now back in Canada, on the western half of North America.
He's no longer goes by Red Wolf Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tim
Timothy
Daniel Shelby.
Selby.
Timothy Daniel Shelby.
Selby. He's
Selby.
not a Mustang. He's not a pony.
Shelby.
Yeah, Chris Nielsen for Brigade says La Losa was an excellent part of Copperhead 2.5. I mean, I had absolute blast when we went to Op 34, and I was a scientist. And I remember that this epic moment where they found these barrels of chemicals, right? First of all, there was this puzzle they had to figure out, and then they figured out, hey, these barrels are producing something at this time, so they had to escort me there so I could test it. And I couldn't have planned this any better. My phone rings, and it's, at the time, my 3-year-old or 4-year-old daughter at the time, and she's telling me like how awesome breakfast is, and she's having pancakes and joy. I have the phone on speaker, having this conversation, but I'm still in character, and one of the players looks over to the other guy, is like, dude, is this Milsim? And I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was, I mean,
that's Union Sim. You were Union Simming.
I was Union Sim. Yeah, and I did take lunch breaks.
Yes.
On that, which they thought like, well, wait, we're supposed to get you over here. I'm like, hold on, 15 minutes. I got my lunch. It's right now. If I don't take it, we miss it. And they're just looking at me like, what do we do? And it's like, it's part of the puzzle.
Your sandwich would have gotten slapped out of your hand if I was there.
Oh!
Smack! Move!
No, you would have taken my sandwich and you would have eaten it. You big bully. Oh, my goodness.
That's all right. When I get into the gameplay, like I could be pretty ruthless. It's fun because you get to just kind of relax and let it out.
Oh my goodness. So let's get back to this third faction. Some producers don't know how to handle things. Sometimes they just jump in with a third faction. What are your guys' thoughts on having a third faction? Is it good? Is it just another thing just to deal with that causes problems, or can it really benefit an event?
All the above, depending on that. The third faction is 100% dependent on who's on the third faction. The game has to be built around like that atmosphere. So if they have something to bring to the game that is completely different than everybody else. I remember going to John Liu events, and there'd be like I don't know what they called themselves, but whoever was wearing the blue shirts, and we just mow them down because they'd come out of their little place, and we would just mount 2 saws on either side of the garage they came out of, and they would come out every half hour or so and then get speckled with BBs and then go back, and that's useless. So a third faction to work well, I think they kind of have to be almost like a hybrid between that and a role player. They don't necessarily have to be a game asset, like from a game control asset, but they have to basically have their own agenda. Like at Copperhead, for instance, La Losa's agenda was basically just to prevent the long flank, right? So both teams were on, they were biased towards one side of the AO, north and south, and we basically just made sure that anytime somebody tried to flank, we just punched holes in their lines, and that created the problem that from that AO and playing there the first time, it became very apparent you could stagnate the lines very quickly. And so the intent was, by having a third faction that just kind of came in from nowhere and took out entire swaths of players and punched holes, all we did all day is prevent stagnation. That was it. and to make it fun for everybody else, we had a completely different rule set. And when they searched us, they got little packets of meth. I mean, how is this not a great game?
Oh, that was awesome. I mean, when they're bringing, I got all, and I remember that they're bringing back like, oh, here's some more drugs, here's some more money. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, and they were digging it. Everybody that searched you guys was, they were loving it.
And I don't know if anybody actually saw it because we steamrolled it was one of those like mad rush kind of scenarios where we were going to run out of ammo real fast. So we just sprinted and shot lots of people and then just kept on running. So we didn't really medic each other lots, but we even had little rubber tourniquets and I got a bunch of syringes. And so to medic itself, we just give each other another little, heroin shot and keep moving. I mean, that was our medic rules, and it was good times. And then we'd all die in a glorious blaze of glory, and then go back, and then the other team could push into kind of where we were, and that basically alleviated a lot of the problems with. In an infinitely sized AO like the real world, you can just send a squad to go, flank 3 miles out, and that's fine. It works real well. But when you're confined to a very minimal amount of space, that's not very realistic, and that's where a decently, activated third faction works. If it's just a bunch of random yahoos trying to blow people up or shoot them with a pistol, that doesn't work very well. They have to know when to come in, and then also go take a break. It has to be exciting. It can't be constant.
Right.
Well, for that particular scenario, I mean, you could build a different scenario that would work 1,000 different ways. I'm not saying there's one right way to do it, but it has to be its own thing.
No, and I think you make a great point. It can't be constant. I witnessed something at last Milsim event I went to in June at Fort Monmouth at OpX, and both factions. It was only 2 factions, but there was it's kind of hard to tell if they were actually a third faction or a role play, but they were inserted in, but they just kept getting shot by both teams because neither team trusted them, but they had not really done anything yet against one side or the other. When you have this third element and people are like, oh, screw that, you're not one of us and you're not them, we don't care, we're just going to shoot you. What do you do as a producer when your two factions are screwing up your plan?
I don't consider that screwing up the game. I consider that to be both factions were acting in their best. That is exactly how that game should have been played from the get-go. I would just say they were inserting them too close to everybody. A third faction should never be even. They should never be friendly or even have a side agreement with any faction. Everybody should be hostile. If they aren't wearing the same uniform as you, they should be hostile 100% of the time. The idea of factions flipping sides or doing this other stuff, that doesn't go very well. Maybe an initial maybe they're neutral in the beginning and then they pick a side later on. That might go well, but no flip-flopping. Flip-flopping's terrible. It really irritates basically everybody, and it always devolves down to exactly what you just described. But when it devolves into that, it's because people are mad. When you build the game and say, hey, if they're not wearing green, you shoot them, or if they're not wearing tan, you shoot them, this is an easy game to play. So I would just say that the game designer was just dropping his third faction off in the middle of everything in a very poor fashion. That's more of a role-playing side. So therefore, if you're going to do that, those guys, if they're going to role-play at all, they should not be combatants. If they are going to role-play, they need to be a third faction and 100% hostile. Because that's the only way people don't get mad.
Gotcha.
Because, I've played on games that were similar to that, and the new rule on the entire AO was you shoot those people, and you shoot them a lot. And just make them go away and never want to come back here again. Half a mag per person at least.
Gotcha.
And then those people just went away because they were at best a massive net negative. They were never a net positive for our team.
Gotcha. So we've had a lot of folks in the chat tonight. Thank you all for joining. We've had other producers giving their opinion in the chat. We've had Hardstrike Milsim. We've had Airsoft Republic. We've had Centurion Milsim. We've even had field owners, like Twig and Dave, sharing their thoughts, and they're all, hey, what's up, boss? Gino's in the house. What's up? Go Eagles. And a lot
Cowboys?
of people,
Sorry, too soon?
Yeah, too soon.
I mean, not that I'm a Cowboys fan, but you said Eagles. I had to be the answer,
I know. You're down there in Texas. I know. I get it. But, man, the chat was going crazy tonight. It was awesome. Loved hearing everybody's input and your questions. And I think that kind of wraps it up for us tonight. We've been going, 90 minutes. But, I mean, you guys have been great in the chat. Kyle and Josh, thanks for hanging in there. Next week, we're going to have Kyle and Greg on the show. Josh, are you going to be back? Are you going to be in studio?
Oh, yeah. I'll be back in the studio. I do not know yet.
Okay.
Might have to pipe me in.
Pipe you in via the satellites. That's what Gino pays the big money for that satellite, because we are the biggest budget airsoft show on the internet. But next week, we're going to talk about at what point does the responsibility of the game transition from the producer to the faction commanders? Because some people believe that faction commanders are just there to lead a bunch of dudes, play the AO, and be gone and be done. But they're not involved in recruiting, educating, and all this other stuff. And we're going to talk about just commanders next week, and the importance of having good commanders for a game, how important that is for you. But before we go, I've just been slipped a note by our AI mod that our hammer comment of the night, look at that. Holly's got a new graphic for us. That's awesome. The hammer comment of the night, who gets a free t-shirt, either a Join the Lines t-shirt or as seen on the Valken Debrief t-shirt, for their comment about L-shaped ambushes, goes to Kevin Tran, because his
well deserved.
Yes.
Well deserved, sir.
Would you guys agree with our mod tonight that Kevin brought
get
the
him
hammer?
a t-shirt and a saw.
T-shirt and a saw. So congrats, Kevin. We will get your t-shirt out in Asian small, right? He's still an Asian small, right?
No, he's been putting on weight. He's a little chubby. Now he's like a real person small.
Oh, nice. Real person small. So be sure to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. Check out our YouTube channel. We got a couple event videos up there. We will be back next week with Kyle Noe again, Greg Anderson, and Darth Valken. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. Have a good night.